Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. To bring in part 3 of What If the Reds and Blues were part of Overwatch. Link down in the description of the fanfiction of this, What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this isn't a scam. Chapter 5, Rise and Shine, Wake Up. Church stumbled into the white, clear hallway as all the lights were tuned off. His blood dripped into multiple drops as it hit the clean floor, leaving a river in his tracks. His body was so freezing, that just a few seconds in the room he was beginning to regain feeling in his body. He moved from side to side, using the walls as a way to keep his balance. He stopped as he saw a metal container with a green cross on it. He went over to it and found it was locked, and to top that off it was built into the wall. Church dropped the sniper and ripped the box off the wall with what strength he had left. He stumbled into a storage room where they kept water coolers and a few cone-shaped cups. He grabbed one of the cups as he was about to do one of the dumbest things he ever attempted. Church stripped off his heavy jacket, then his thermal, his undershirt, and lastly his tank top. He set them into a small pile near the first aid kit, which he then started to search through. He saw a bottle of ethanol alcohol spun off the lid and prepared for a world of pain. The stinging pain made Church grunt and cry out in pain. G-G-G-R-R-R-R-R-A-A-G-G-G-G-G-G-H-H-H. He screamed. He dropped the bottle and nearly collapsed from the stinging from his wound. Church then grabbed the cup and one of his sniper bullet casings and a knife. He took the knife and put the blade against the tip of the bullet head. He sliced the golden tip off the round, and poured the gunpowder into the cup. He began to filter the powder into the hole that passed through him. He tossed the cup out of the way and pulled out his lighter from one of the dead fellow soldiers. He flipped the square open to set it off as the small flame burned bright. He closed his eyes to keep himself from seeing the pain he was about to experience. He dropped the lighter as the flame fell onto his wound, lighting the powder with a bright spark. He made an unknown sound, a mix between a grunt and a scream as his wound was set on fire. After the fire wound, Church wrapped the bandages around his open wound. He crawled on his hands and knees and made his way to the wall. Church placed his bare back onto the wall and rested his eyes, not knowing there was another set of eyes on him. Hours later, Church woke up many hours later after he nearly collapsed from the pain. Only he found himself wrapped in a warm blanket that he didn't remember putting on. He got to his feet and walked out to the hallway with his hair looking like a mess. He walked down the hall where it was lit further down where he didn't go to. He stumbled down the hallway as he suspected that this place was empty. He covered his eyes with his arms as the bright light was causing him to go blind. Church squinted as he made out a figure near the frost-covered window. "Hey?" he asked as he wondered who it was. The figure turned around and saw Church. "Ni hao," she said in an adorable voice. Church looked confused as he couldn't wrap his head around what she said. "Huh?" he asked. "Bonjour," she replied again, hoping for a different response. English perhaps?" he asked, hoping for her to understand. "Oh, yes," she said. "Good, where am I?" Church asked. "I mean, I didn't know there was another base around for miles," he said. "Well, this is a research center, was meant to be a secret to the public, and it's been forgotten by another organization," she added as she looked at the floor. "Well, mine was attacked, and wait, research center. Who are you? What are you doing? Shouldn't there be a whole team?" Church asked. She sighed as she was about to answer his questions. "Yes, this was a research center. My name is Mei Zhou. I was part of a research team meant to study the atmospheric anomalies here for studies. The rest of the team had died during their cryostasis slumber. I am the only one to survive," she said as she held her head low. "I'm sorry to hear that. So is there anywhere from here to go? Is there anyone coming to help us?" Church asked. "There should have been a team 9 years ago, but they never showed up," she said. "All right then, we're on our own. Just fucking perfect," he said as he turned around and put his hands over his head in defeat. Church was at one of his lowest points, not because his body ached, but because he lost all faith. He had only been in this position one other time, and that one other time was when he had a group of people he called family with him. He was alone now, no one to guide him and no one to pick him up. He couldn't have felt any lower. Every time that he got somewhere close, no matter what, it was always yanked from him. Church collapsed to his knees on the brink of tears as he covered the sides of his face. He opened his eyes to see two electronic blue eyes look softly up at him. Snowball stared at Church in his depressed state. Even though Snowball didn't use words, something about that small floating boat made Church feel reassured him he'd make it through. Church rose to his feet. "I have suffered a lot, and I'm sorry for cursing," he said as he faced away from her, "but I am too tired to stop now, so what have you got in mind?" Church asked. Mei smiled. "All right then, but first, please put on a shirt, it's very distracting and your wound might get infected." Church looked down at his bloodied bandages. "Oh yeah, right," he said. Minutes later. Thus began the epic building montage and the time lapses for building the devices that would save their lives. Taking a hairdryer, a few utensils, a bunch of water jugs, and many other unnamed and miscellaneous items had. Church grabbed all the tools and materials they needed and set them on the table. He helped out half of the time because he was A, wounded, and B, not familiar with the stuff she was doing. The materials piled down as the device was near complete and the ramen bowls piled up. The final step, Mei took the fluid from the cryogenic chambers and transferred them through multiple containers with hoses connecting each of them. Mei pushed a final button on a remote to see if all their hard work would pay off. She looked closely as she flipped the switch and saw a single drop turn into a mini ice glacier. Mei smiled and jumped up with excitement. "Cool," she said. Church nodded as he couldn't celebrate too much. Snowball put a hand icon on his face signaling a high five. Snowball took one of his fins up in the air as Mei gently high-fived her robotic. Unfortunately their victory was short. At the same time they clapped, the lights in the room went out. "Oh no," Mei said, fearing the worst. She pressed the button in her hand multiple times. "Come on, come on, come on, come on," she pleaded, hoping the machine would work again. They rushed to the power room, in hopes that their worst fears weren't realized. Unfortunately they were. "That was the last battery, wasn't it?" she asked, knowing the answer. She started to blame herself. "How could I have forgotten about the last battery?" she asked herself. She was now in Church's position. "Without power, we're dead," she said as she tried to come up with a plan. Church then remembered something that might help. "There is one battery I know, but it's out there in the snow. Chances are if I trace my steps it should still be there," he said. Mei looked in disbelief. "Are you crazy? Going off course by even and could kill you. It's suicide," she said. "There's no time, I am not dying in a glacier, today," he said. However, there was no need for that, as the screen started to light up and glow. They both looked back at the screen with surprise. "Power, Snowball." Mei called out to her friend. "What?" she said as she saw Snowball's battery going down. Church looked over as well. "No, no, no, damn it Snowball, don't do this to us, please, just stay with us," Church demanded. Mei saw his battery go into the red, then down to nothing. "You can't," she said as she lost Snowball to the sacrifice he gave. She took off her glasses to wipe away the tears. "Thank you, my friend," she said. They immediately went back to work, using the remainder of the power he had given to fill up the ice gun. Mei grabbed the device they made, as Church grabbed the antenna and the laptop as they loaded up. Dressed in the heaviest coats possible and ready for the task at hand, they stood at the satellite tower. Mei froze one part as a starting point for their long climb to the top. They put hand after hand and foot after foot without looking back at how far they came. They stopped at the place Mei had her eye on for a while. She stopped to connect the metal beams with a large amount of ice. She then continued to climb with Church on her heels. The next beam would be fatal. As had both arms on the beam, the bolts that connected it fell out of place on one side then came off. Quickly she pulled herself up and leapt to one of the side bars for safety, but the bar she leapt from fell, breaking the ice. Church was right next to it as part of the yellow gas main exploded away from him. The tower was tilting and leaned to the ice glacier with great speed. They held onto the beam to the side as Mei made a desperate act and fired the ice gun to the glacier. Mei and Church closed their eyes to avoid the painful demise they would feel, only for there to be nothing. They opened their eyes as Mei's gun stopped the tower from falling onto its side and created a huge ice formation between the tower and the glacier wall. Church looked at Mei as she looked at her gun. "Whoa," was all she got out. Mei took one part of the server dish and plugged her computer into it, while Church had one hand in the air with the makeshift antenna. Mei was pressing all the buttons on the computer trying to make it work. Come on, come on, Mei demanded. She then saw a familiar ape she hasn't seen in a while as he spoke to the agents of Overwatch. The ape said, Winston, Winston, oh my gosh, Mei cheered. Who's Winston? Church asked. Shish, she said trying to listen. The people decided they were better off without us. They even called us criminals, they tore our families apart. But look around, someone has to do something, we have to do something. We can make a difference again. The world needs us now more than ever, Winston said as he neared the end of his speech. Mei looked at the data hard drive in her hand knowing well that the data could save many lives. Then took a look at the sky, seeing the northern lights up close made her realize how far she had come, and reminded her how far she could go. Are you with me? Winston asked. Yes, Winston, I am with you, Mei answered. 3 hours later, Mei had poured 5 cups of hot cocoa for her 5 friends in their cryostasis chambers. She placed them down in front of each of them and bowed her head as she hoped they were in a better place. Church was in another room as he took out a huge bag that seemed to jingle in a way. In the bag were the dog tags from the many men who died at his base. He poured them onto the floor and placed a pistol and one stray bullet next to it. Church walked away and closed the door behind them, giving them a resting place. Mei and Church stood at the door leading to the outside cold, dressed in their heavy coats. Later still, the White Hills had a single line through it as the two walked away from the base. Church hauling the load to earn his keep from being useless before. Mei walking with the backpack strapped on as she trudged foot after foot through snow. They looked back to see how far they were, knowing they'd have an even farther journey. Suddenly 2 electronic eyes woke up from a solar-powered sleep. It was none other than Snowball. Mei smiled at her friend being alive. Rise and shine, Snowball. We're on our way, Mei said as they continued walking. Chapter 6. Reunited and it feels so good. At a secret Overwatch facility. Griff, Lucio, and DVA were the first ones on the scene as they entered into the docking bay. Griff was talking to them how he once was a lot less out of shape. Until he saw a certain dark orange-haired person he hasn't seen in a while. Guess they really did scrape the bottom of the barrel. Griff said, getting Simmons's attention. Simmons looked to Griff's direction and responded, guess they did since your ass is here. He retorted. Griff looked at Simmons's lab coat. When you gonna give Rick Sanchez his lab coat back? He asked. Simmons got a glimpse at a few of Griff's tribal tattoos. Same day you give Maui his tattoos back, he said. Afraid of an immediate confrontation, Lucio, DVA, and Symmetra walked over towards them. Griff and Simmons stared each other down until they both started to laugh as they threw an arm over each other's shoulders. Suddenly heavy suede work boots started to march into the room as the boys continued laughing. A voice much more mighty than Reinhardt's spoke up. Never thought I'd see you boys again, the voice said. Griff and Simmons turned around as they heard the voice. Simmons went into a 10-hut position. Griff just waved. Hey Sarge, surprised to see you still ticking old man, figured you'd blow up, Griff said. Sarge took it as a compliment. Why thanked Griff, unfortunately I hoped you died. Oh, what fond dreams I've had every night, Sarge said. Simmons stepped forward, and may I say sir, it is an honor to see you again, he said, already kissing ass. Why thank you, Simmons, he said as he patted his back. Suddenly another figure spoke up. Well, look what the cat dragged in, a slightly familiar voice said. Oh, hey Doc, Griff said. Doc, Sarge nodded. What up Doc? Simmons asked. Did anyone miss me? He asked feeling heartbroken. I missed you Doc, Sarge said, but my aim is getting better, he said as a joke. I actually missed you, came a cheery voice. God damn it, Donut, don't say anything about how you missed us, Griff started. Donut looked confused. What? I was just going to ask when you guys would. Shut it Donut, Sarge demanded. Crap, dismantle me now, a monotone voice spoke in Spanish. Sarge turned around to see Lopez. Lopez, my god, happy to see there is one good soldier on the team, he said. And I'm glad to know when you are not looking, I'm going to poison your meal, Lopez said knowing they couldn't understand him. Heh, Lopez, you crack me up. Sarge said, not knowing what Lopez said. Suddenly heavy footsteps were heard as Reinhardt entered with Caboose behind him. Caboose ran over and lifted Sarge. Pirate Sergeant, it is good to see you again. Caboose said as he hugged him tight. Sarge's back made a cracking noise. Glad to see you too, Big Blue. Thanks for the back crack, I've been meaning to get that fixed up. He said, patting Caboose on the back. Someone slowly entered the room. Well, guess it's been too long. A new but memorable voice said. Tucker. Sarge nodded. Boys. Tucker nodded back to each of them. As they all got familiar with each other, they were brought into a large conference room. They each sat at a fair distance apart as they continued to laugh and talk about their stories. Until a large crouching figure came crawling into the room. Gentlemen, please do not let my look fool you. I am here because, Winston began. Honestly, a talking gorilla doesn't exactly weird us out. Tucker answered. Wah, really? Winston asked. Yeah, you place yourself on number 5 on my Strange Things book. What about you, Sarge? Tucker asked. Number 10. Sarge answered. Really? Tucker asked. You haven't lived with Donut as long as we have. He said, remembering and suppressing the memories. Oh, well alright then, I guess we should get back to business. All of you are almost accounted for, is that correct? Winston asked, looking at his white clipboard. Tucker looked around at the table. No, I think we're all here. Tucker answered. Well, it says my files that there should be another member by the name of Leonard Church. Winston said as he listed the name. Tucker looked around to the table to see all the reds and blues put their heads down. He was the only one to speak up. Is this some kind of twisted joke? He asked. Pardon me? Winston asked. Tucker stood up and started to walk away. This isn't fucking funny. He said as he started to leave. He walked out as he was soon followed by the rest of the team and the Overwatch members. Winston charged ahead of him. Whoa, was it something I said to offend you? Because I'm sorry if I did, but I don't know what I did. He said as Tucker neared the door. You know what? It's one thing to bring us here from our lives, but don't ever bring his name up unless you knew him. He said as he pulled the handle of the door, and you need to get your facts right. Churches duh. He stopped in his tracks. He froze as his eyes were focused on the man standing right in front of him. A man who seemed to have risen from the grave and was now a ghost. Tucker finally got a word out as the ghost and him stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. Church? He questioned. Tucker. The figure asked in response. Church took a step forward. Whoa, stay back. He demanded. He put his hand out and pushed against Church's body to see if he was imagining. When his hand touched Church's jacket, he felt the icy cold fabric. When he felt the fabric, he hit him in the chest. On the brink of tears. Where has your ass been? We thought you were dead. Tucker said. I thought you all died. Church said as he cocked his head. Who told you that? Tucker asked. Wash said you all went down with the ship. Church answered. Wash told us you went down with the ship. Tucker said. Church grabbed Tucker by the shoulders and pulled him in for a hug. That lying son of a bitch. He said as he held Tucker. Caboose charged up with a smile and tears falling down his face. Church, I. He tried to get out. Church was released. I missed you too, Caboose. We got a lot to catch up on. But first, I need a medic because I think my wound opened up again, and I want a bacon cheeseburger. I haven't eaten in a while. He said. Tucker laughed. Alright then, fatty, good thing you slimmed down, otherwise I wouldn't let you have one. He joked. Tucker and Caboose carried Church to Mercy's office to fix his side up again. The rest of the team followed as the Overwatch team rejoiced seeing Mei again. Winston was left in the middle of all this. Well, I guess we'll continue this another time. He said. Hours of treatments, tests, and rest later in Winston's office. Thank you for coming here, I just need to know a few things. Winston said as he looked at Church. Church nodded. Yeah, sure, no problem. Now I'm going to ask you to answer all these questions as honest as possible. Now then, what are your special abilities? He asked. Church knew what he meant based on what his team has done in the past with theirs. He began to answer. Unbreakable. If I trigger that, I'll be immune to any attack known to man, gaining a short invincibility. Embrace the pain. This is more of a perk, but if I'm closer to death my damage output increases amazingly. Light the fuse. Basically I pull out a pack of dynamite and toss it. Hellborn. If I set myself on fire, all damage is reduced and I heal slightly as well. And lastly, left behind. If I'm alone, then all my normal speed, strength, power, and damage is increased to double that. Church answered. Yes, very good. Winston said as he jotted down the notes. Now what about your ultimate? He asked. I'd rather keep that to myself. It's not exactly something I'm proud of. He said. Very well. Pros? Winston asked. That I'm aggressive, Church said. And cons? Winston asked again. That my eyes are fucked up. He said. Winston looked at him. Really? We should have you see mercy about that. He said. Thanks, Church said as he stood up and shook Winston's hand. Wait, what about your background? Winston asked as Church was leaving. Trust me, a man's memory and past is best left alone. He said as he went with the team. With the team, Church walked in. What I miss? He asked. Tucker was about to open a white box. Oh well, they gave us some loot boxes as a way of apologizing for not telling us you were alive. He said. Loot boxes? Church asked. Yeah, watch. Tucker said as he opened one showing 2 common sprays, one emote of him going swish swish stab, and a costume of Tucker in his main suit. Give me one, Church demanded, hoping he would get something good. Griff opened one and got new sprays and a new emote where he pulls out a can of soda, chugs it and breaks it on his head. Simmons got new sprays as well but also received a voice interaction where he asks, you ever wondered why we're here? He would ask. Lopez opened his box and got new sprays and a new emote where he takes off his head and does a Shakespeare position. Caboose actually got very lucky with a new skin that was a football player's shoulder pads and helmet. He also received an emote where he spells his name on the floor with his gun and spells Caboose with a U and no E. Everyone else got random skins and different items as they kept laughing the day away. Somewhere else in the world, a certain person who loved discovering secrets and hacking was going through the files Reaper had swiped. She found something interesting. Hey Gabe, you're gonna wanna see this. She said into her comm link. There was no response from the him yet. Reaper come in. She shrugged. What is it, Sombra? He asked in his dark voice. Turns out Overwatch isn't just recruiting old members and random heroes. They recruited some random idiots as well. She said as she scooted over to show the group of soldiers on the pictures. Widowmaker, Reaper, and Tex looked at the screen. I know those idiots. They're not much of a threat. She said. Reaper stared at the screen. Well then I guess we need more members as well. He said. Sombra looked back. You talking about Doomfist and Moira? She asked. Yes, is that a problem? He asked. No, but I got a list as well. Sombra said, pinching her fingers together. Who's on it? Tex asked, wondering if these people were good. Just the usual, an assassin, a hitman, and a monster. Sombra said with a smile. The pictures of a brown-haired man with orange highlights showed up first. Codename, Felix. Type, DPS. Weapons, knives, machine guns, sticky grenade launcher. Height, 5 feet 7 inches. Abilities, slasher shot, dart shot, quick slash, personal shield. Ultimate, the biggest prick, fires an endless supply of knives that deal up to 50 damage a second for up to 15 seconds. Pros, lethal, fast, and silent. Cons, complete douchebag. Next one was a British man with a mustache. I know him. Tex said, a real ace. She said. Codename, Wyoming. Type, defense. Weapon type, sniper cane. Height, 6 feet 0 inches. Abilities, gentleman's bluff, empty the clip. Ultimate, Team Wyoming, spawns in a team ranging from 6 to 12 Wyomings at once. Pros, excellent shot, exceptional at hand-to-hand combat. Cons, that mustache though. And lastly, the picture showed a menacing-looking bald man, packed with muscle. Sombra wasn't lying when she said she had a monster. Tex stated. Codename, Meta. Type, tank. Weapons, dual brute shots. Height, 8 feet 2 inches. Abilities, earthquake, slash attack, leaping crush. Ultimate, the meta, damage and melee goes up by 200% and speed by 75%, making him the beast. Pros, possibly the strongest thing on earth. Cons, can't speak. Reaper nodded. Good, very good. He said as Sombra sent them a little invite. This is the end of part 3 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to my channel.